speak at the time. It'd be great if everyone could stay on mute. Well, we've got 19 people so far. Let's see if we can hit 20 before we launch. No one got blown away today in the breeze?
Oh, it's pretty heavy though. Pretty strong breeze here. Yeah, it's gusting into the low 30s down the Faulkner.
Yeah. There was a good surf up the top end of the bay even.
We'll see. For a northerly.
Okay, well, we've got 20. I think that'll be enough for everyone to start. And hi everyone, and welcome to another of the Hobsons Bay lockdown catch-ups. My name's Colin Leake, I'm part of the General Committee at Hobos. It's my privilege to be able to introduce to you a long-term member, Rod Fuller. Now, Rod's been a member here for about 20 years. For the last 4 years, he's been club secretary. And as all good sailors start, he started in dinghies at about 11 years old, worked his way up, was skippering 420s in the Nationals. That's right, Rod?
That's right. Yeah.
Sounds like there would have been a lot of fun had there.
Yeah.
He's been cruising and racing his beautiful H28 Shamrock around from Hobos for the last 18 odd years, where I believe he might have developed an allergic reaction to sandpaper and varnish. Because he has seen the light and he's crossed over to the Plastic Fantastics now. I was lucky enough to be able to help him deliver his new plastic boat down from Pittwater. And this was just when COVID was breaking out. So that made it for quite an interesting trip, something a little bit different. So, well, with that done, Rod, I'll hand over to you. Just a bit of housekeeping, everyone. We'll keep the questions to the end of Rod's presentation. Feel free to use the chat feed to ask any questions, and we'll make sure we get round to everyone at the end of the meeting. So with that done, Rod, over to you.
Thanks, Colin. I just need Rod to put the PowerPoint presentation up on the screen, shared screen. Okay. And fire away. Well, thanks for that introduction, Colin. About the beginning of this year, I'd found these couple of Bavaria 33 cruises up in New South Wales, one at Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club, which really caught my eye and spurred me to go up there and have a look at it. And so January was spent looking at the boat and then getting it surveyed and then proceeding. It came up trumps, very good condition and very well maintained by one owner since 2006. And so I proceeded with the purchase and then had to get my mind around, well, how am I going to get this to Melbourne? And so I started a couple of discussions with Colin, and really the idea of sailing it down appealed to me. I had the time, and doing a nice leisurely cruise down the east coast and around the bottom, and it really appealed to me. So Colin came on board and could allocate a couple of weeks of time to me. Rod, would you move on to the next slide, thanks? And I recognised that having gone right over the boat, there was quite a number of things I needed to do to prepare the boat for this sort of trip. And I was aiming to get away sometime in March to grab what is normally pretty good cruising weather, March, maybe into April. And so I loaded up my car with a lot of sailing gear, including Colin's life raft, and I drove up to Sydney, and I lived on board the boat which was located at the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club for 2 weeks. And you can see in front of you there a whole list of things that I wanted to work through before embarking on a delivery cruise, and get familiar with the boat and do a bit of sailing, but also during the course of the sailing, the engine starter battery gave up, so that was an obvious replacement, and probably a relief that it occurred then and not later during the trip. The Navionics card and the chart plotter it's a Ray Marine chart plotter. I wanted to upgrade that, so Navionics being in Sydney, I could pop down there and get the latest card. I had a Saka XL anchor I'd used on Shamrock, so I had a lot of confidence in that. I wanted to put that on the boat and swap over the anchor that was on it. And there's a few other things. Also, at the yacht club there, if anybody knows Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club, it's a beautiful yacht club. It's got a great kitchen, great bistro, great outdoor eating area. It's got a full working yard, but you're not allowed to work on your boat in the yard. It's all done by labour there, by the club. So I'd organised that I wanted the boat lifted out again, and I wanted it cleaned and polished, top-size polished, and I wanted the prop coated. So if we can just go to the next slide. Thanks, Rod. So there's the boat. She's had a good clean, and they did a great job polishing the top sides and lightening my wallet a little bit, and back in the water she went. Next slide. Thanks. Colin and I have been discussing the delivery cruise, and this is a sort of cruise plan that I was mapping out. I wanted a third person on board, so I approached my old H28 friend Terry Bower, who lives down at Paynesville on the Gippsland Lakes. Would he join us? He was willing to come along. And so it's a trio. Nice to have 3 people on board, 2 on, 1 off when we're sailing through the night on different shifts. And so the original plan was that I had plenty of time, so let's make it 4 or 6 weeks. Colin could allow us 2 weeks. The aim was to sail, stopping at several spots leisurely down the New South Wales coast, around Gabo and into Lakes Entrance, across to Paynesville. Colin would leave us there. I had a group of friends, including sailing friends from Adelaide, and to come across and join us down there, and my partner Lynn. We spent 2 to 4 weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks, cruising on the Gippsland Lakes, based out of Paynesville. And then after that, Terry and I and my sailing friend John from Adelaide would continue the trip back, the rest of the journey up to Melbourne to Williamstown. Go to the next slide, thanks. So on the 16th, Terry, Colin and I flew up to Sydney and loaded our gear on board, and Terry and I finished off the provisioning, and while Colin ran his roar over the boat and set a few things up, tested a few things, made sure he was fully comfortable with what's what. And by the end of that day, we were into the clubhouse for dinner, and we were looking at the forecasts, and things were looking pretty reasonable for the next day for taking off. So next slide, thanks. So Tuesday the 17th, 3 Amigos there, set sail down Pittwater, and during my time as a kid, I'd been fortunate enough to be taken up to the Hawkesbury River for a couple of holidays on the Helpsman cruises out of Bobbin Head. So I had a real hankering for our first stop to be somewhere around in the Hawkesbury River, particularly as a spot. There's a couple of little bays, one called America Bay and Refuge Bay, close to one another there. So we went down Pittwater, turned left, and on our way around towards those bays, we did our main overboard route test run. Colin did the surprise, throwing the object overboard, and we did a man overboard recovery, and we ended up, next slide, thanks Rod, that evening there in America Bay. And America Bay, you can see, might just be able to see a few yellow moorings. It's far cry from what I recollect having a few key mooring points that you could pick up there for hulls and cruises. It was a maze of yellow buoys, so I'd imagine it would be a fairly busy place during summer, but we had it almost to ourselves. and we had a nice comfortable night there, and the galley hand managed to serve up a reasonably good dinner, and everybody was pretty happy, and the weather forecast was looking good for continuing on the next day. And the next slide, thanks, Rod. And so we set out through Broken Bay and turned right and headed down the New South Wales coast. And it was pretty mild conditions. It was a bit of motor sailing, bit of sailing, bit of motor sailing. It's pretty much these conditions right down that initial part of the journey. Initial first stop we targeted was Jervis Bay. Can I have the next slide? Thanks, Rod. And I just wanted to stop there. So Colin's excellent navigation got us right into that little anchorage spot there in Jervis Bay under cover of darkness, and we had a nice quiet night, nice good rest overnight. Decided again the forecast was looking a few days, so let's press on. We pressed on then.
I'll just add in there, Rod, too, that there is a couple of moorings there, and we've got someone there that's enjoying their dinner that's not on mute.
Yeah.
Screen, you can't hear it.
Yes, as you said, Colin, a couple more.
Reliable
The Wi-Fi is fine. I'm getting it here. That's the problem with the TV.
Nick, could I get you to mute, please?
Or possibly the guy running the Zoom thing.
Hello, Nick, and Eddie as well, if you could.
Okay, so the next day we continued on. Next slide, thanks, Rod. And our destination was Bermagui. We had some brilliant downwind sailing. Epic Cruiser's dream. At times hitting 12 knots, just wing and wing on a beautiful downhill run towards Bermagui. Next slide, thanks. And it was pretty much late in the evening, I think, Colin, by the time we got to Bermagui, where we teed up a marina berth there in the little harbour. And nice and
stoked.
Place
to stop.
Yeah, nice and stoked for the night. By this time, we were getting a bit of communication from home that things were changing on shore with COVID. We sort of jokingly said, well, we're isolating at sea, we're fine, we don't have to worry about this. Terry and I took a stroll up to the supermarket, then it sort of hit us, well, there were quite a few shelves on the supermarket there that were light on for stock. So you could see there's a bit of an impact from COVID at that stage, but there were a lot of people still around. There wasn't any really signs of lockdown to any great degree. And we refueled the boat and had a good look around through. We were there for a couple of nights, I think, before we continued the journey.
We were learning some new terms, weren't we? Like social distancing and stuff like that everyone was talking about. And
that's right.
Some people saying it's just a flu, and we were trying to work out what it was all about.
Yeah, but I think on the way down the coast, we did spot a couple of cruise ships off Port Kembla that were anchored offshore there, and we were getting the gist of what was going on with the Ruby Princess and such. So, but gee, it was nice sailing, so we pressed on. Next slide, thanks, Rod. And the target destination was into the Boyd Town side of Twofold Bay. And again, Colin nicely navigated us in under cover of darkness into that little spot. You can see marked there as our anchorage over behind the wood chip wharf, where there was a ship loading, but no wood chips. Can we have the next slide, thanks. There was a lot of evidence of the bushfires, the December-January bushfires. The wood chip pile there was completely burnt out. A lot of burnt trees along the shoreline there at the time. So you might just manage to see a timber jinker truck on the jetty there. He was dragging out logs to be loaded onto that ship. No wood chips inside.
If I can, Rod, in the background there, near that big overhead crane thing, there's usually a mountain there of wood chip, and is sad to see that it's completely gone.
Yeah. Okay, so a bit more communication from home, and by this time, Terry's family was starting to put a bit of pressure on him and saying, "I think you're in the vulnerable age group for this virus, and we don't want you going as far as Melbourne." And then my friend from Adelaide was ringing up and saying, "I don't know that I'm going to be able to get across the border to Melbourne and come down to join you." And they're talking about the borders closing, and so the idea that they would have a full crew and continue with a 4 to 6 week cruise plan was starting to look a little bit shaky. We have the next slide, thanks. And Terry was in that age group where he was starting to say, "Well, I don't think he can go through to Melbourne. He's going to perhaps leave us at Lakes Entrance." Continue on down the coast, and you can see us rounding Gabo there. The usual cry late in the day, "The galley hand, what's for dinner?" So the galley hand was downstairs that night preparing chili con carne for the hungry crew. As we continued in a westerly direction, the conditions were fairly moderate. 9, I recollect we did a bit of motor sailing through the night, Colin, on our way to Lakes Entrance.
I would like to add that we ate very well. Rod's a very good cook, and he was able to put together a lot of good meals. I think the discussion behind the chili con carne was we needed more wind.
That's
give that a go.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I can't recollect whether it worked or not. Colin, anyway. So Terry had decided by then he'd definitely leave us at Lakes Entrance, and I was starting to think that the cruising around the lakes was not going to happen. What were the alternatives? And Terry quite generously offered. He said, "I'll find you a berth in the lakes if you want to leave the boat there and then go home, and you'll keep an eye on it for me," which is a fairly attractive option, because it would have been nice to leave it there for, say, 6 months and go back and do several trips down to, drive down to the lakes and spend time on the boat cruising the lakes in comfort. But as time got on and more information came through about COVID and the restrictions, it became clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to drive Melbourne to Paynesville. I was going to be fairly constrained, and there would be a boat down there that I couldn't get to, and I'm relying on somebody else to keep an eye on and look after. And as it happens, as it's unfolded, I wouldn't have seen that boat for quite a while. So I decided against that, and all the people who were going to meet me, friends at Paynesville, and have a couple of weeks with us down there, all decided, with their wisdom, individually, they wouldn't go down there, wouldn't meet us. We have the next slide, thanks, Rod. And so it was shortened the cruise time, and I decided with Colin that the two of us should continue sailing home after the Lakes Entrance stopped. So we pulled into Lakes, and we had a couple of nights there, and we're pretty comfortable. And as normally happens when you're cruising, you always meet other fellow cruisers. This couple from Geelong on their Coal 43, I think, Colin, you knew one of their relatives, or the brother or sister or something, I think, from memory.
Yeah, I think they were related to the last delivery that I'd done from Brisbane.
Right.
The members down at Geelong, so that they were able to say, "Oh yes, we know of you on their deliveries." So it's always good fun. It's amazing how often you bump into the people that know people
along the way. Exactly. And their story was they'd left Geelong and they'd been on the lakes cruising for a few weeks, I think, and they were ready to go to Tassie, but now the borders looked like closing, and they had a dilemma. What are they going to do? And I think we last saw them heading back into the lakes. Can I have the next slide? Thanks, Rod. And Colin and I departed. You can see just beautiful conditions for getting in and out of Lakes Entrance that particular day, and we had a lovely forecast for a growing easterly breeze during the course of the day. Next slide, thanks. So that was just ideal for heading across in the direction of the prom. And on the way there, we had the joys of this beautiful weather and a bit of marine accompaniment as well, with the beautiful pods of dolphins playing with the boat for quite a while on one part of the day. The easterly persisted, and we had just a lovely sail across there right into the night. I think by night time, and Colin and I were discussing it, saying, well, this easterly is still with us. Let's go around the prom. And I certainly recollected, and Colin knew well of it, a beautiful safe anchorage around there. But the person who had brought it to my attention back in 2016 was our departed old friend, Bob Lachlan, who did a cruise with me down there to the lakes in 2016. And the next slide, thanks. So we tucked around the bottom of the prom and up into Oberon Bay and dropped the anchor. Again, it was dark, and Colin and I had a rest. Next morning after breakfast, we decided, well, let's press on, and weather was looking good, breeze was light. The next slide, thanks. And we up anchored, and we did a lot of motor sailing from memory, and that's when I really appreciated Alfred. The auto helm had been christened Alfred by that time, and he got a lot of use on this trip, and I really appreciated having an auto helm. We virtually motor sailed and motor sailed from there right across to Queenscliff. Next slide, thanks. Past Cape Liptrap, we had a bit of breeze at some stages during the day, but it was just sort of pristine, light cruising conditions, and very enjoyable, more enjoyable cruising right through into the night. Next slide, thanks. Until we got to Port Phillip Heads, where we had to wait our turn. There was a cruise ship coming in, so we snuck across into Four Fingers West and made our entrance into the bay after the cruise ship zoomed past us on the deeper channel, through the deeper channel, and we made our way into Queenscliff. Next slide, thanks. And sat out a couple of days there. There was a bit of squally weather, a bit of fine weather, a bit of squally weather, and then after a couple of nights there, we decided to looking pretty good for a run up the bay. We left there, I think, on the morning of the 30th of March, and everyone from home was saying, oh, when you step ashore in Melbourne, you'll find things very different. And so we thought, well, we'll see what's ahead of us. We've got some idea. Queenscliff, while we were there, it was interesting. Colin, you might remember going for a walk along we were in the Queenscliff Boat Harbour area, Marina Pen there, and going out to the coffee shop there. There was a group of bikies, push bike riders. They were there for their morning coffee stop, but they were all standing around in a big circle, well apart from each other, drinking their coffee and having a natter during the break from their Sunday morning, I think, bike ride from memory.
There's also the big queue of people out the front of the hairdressers.
That's right. Yeah.
Up to get their haircut.
Yeah, restaurants closed, and things looking fairly quiet in Queenscliff, recollection. Anyway, we continued on. The next slide, thanks. Up the bay, and there you'll see a couple of familiar sights for anyone who sails on Port Phillip Bay. West Channel Light and ships at anchor as we got closer and closer to Williamstown, and finally by, I think it was the afternoon, on the early afternoon on the 30th of March, we were in Williamstown. Next slide, thanks. And the boat went into a pen at Royals, and it's going to be there for the time being. It's still there. I'm waiting for Marina Pen at Hobos, so we're on the waiting list at the moment. But it's snugly tucked away there, in a good pen at Royals at the moment. Unfortunately, I just can't get, but I'm outside 5Ks and I can't even walk there for exercise over that. So there we have it. That was the end of the cruise, and my son came down and picked me up the next day and packed up the boat, and that was it. And were into, I think, stage 3 lockdown at that stage, and things were very different on shore. So sadly, a shortened cruise, shorter than what I intended, but very comfortable cruise and great crew, and really appreciated Colin's navigation and help. Sadly, Terry couldn't go the full distance, but he was happy to do the trip down the east coast, New South Wales coast, that he hadn't been down before. So I think, without any further ado, I think that's about it from me. If anybody has any questions, love to take them.
I would just like to add that we did have a wonderful time. It's normally I'd allow 5 odd days for a Sydney-Melbourne delivery, but it was great to have a relaxed stop each night for a nice feed. Pleasant company. It was great fun. We had a good time. I would like to just answer the first question that we had, or exclamation from Mr. Judge, mentioning electric winches. No.
What he spotted was the little sticker that somebody with the previous owner had, I think, facetiously put on the winches. So he was some years older than me, I think, and he'd got to a stage where his wife couldn't sail with him anymore. He was trying to sell the boat. So I don't remember asking what that was. So I just assumed that he'd had somebody come on board trying to sell him an electric winch upgrade or something, and stuck them on. I hadn't taken them off at that stage. But the winches are just so powerful compared with those on Shamrock. I can't see the need for electric winches for me for a while. Hopefully not for a long while.
We've got any other questions from people?
Yes, Colin. This is the Commodore speaking.
Hello, Colin.
Yes. Now, I was wondering, are you like Daniel Andrews and you've had a black market haircut? Because you're looking rather shorn.
Do you like that one? Yes. No, the sea lice have been busy. They've all had a nibble. So.
Ah, right. Okay.
I invested in one of those home haircut jobs, like more and more people.
The last time you did that, I recall, a bit of surge came through and the clippers had a life of their own, and you suffered.
I lost my beard, actually, on a trim.
Right. And the other thing was for Rod and anyone else that hasn't read their emails today, as of today, you are allowed to go more than 5K to do essential maintenance and check on your boat. So you've all been sent an email, so have a check of that. It's something that Australian Sailing negotiated with Marine Safety, and they agreed that you were able to come out to do that. I wouldn't go berserk and start ripping off your whole cabin top or anything like that, but yes, you are allowed to.
Excellent.
Okay, from Lynn, the length and the weight of the boat, and how does she compare to Shamrock?
Oh, look, she's very different from Shamrock. She's an inch shorter than 35 feet. It's called a Bavaria 33, but it's not 33 feet. That's just a model number. It's nearly 35 feet. It's very spacious. It's very comfortable. It's got so many systems. I was absolutely overwhelmed with the electric toilet flush and the hot water and the refrigeration and the gas stove with an oven, and look, it was absolute cruising bliss for me after Shamrock. No, very different boat. Look, it performs beautifully like a plastic boat should, and I really enjoy being able to very easily control lots of things from the cockpit. Shamrock was a great boat. I really enjoyed many years of sailing and maintaining her, and in partnership with Dean. This is the next window of opportunity I think I saw, was to upgrade to this boat and perhaps might even get the grandchildren a little bit more interested in sailing. They came out on Shamrock a few times, but hopefully we'll get them out on this boat at some stage too. Shamrock, I saw David Judge's question there, is currently with the new owner up in Sydney. He's a member of the Sydney Amateur Sailing Club at Cremorne, and he's in really good company there because it's the home of many beautiful classic boats and a lot of lot of classic yacht knowledge at that location.
Yes, Rod, you mentioned having a plastic boat now. You do understand that you are such a disappointment to us in the classics now.
You mean in the classics? You mean
Yeah.
was it there? Yeah. Well, I reckon after 17 years, well, actually it was more than 17 years of sanding and varnishing and scrubbing and being hauled up the two masts and varnishing those, and every year doing a monumental amount of work. I think I've deserved a little bit of a lighter maintenance load for the rest of my sailing days, Colin.
17 years. A classic boat is a lifetime of work. You only did a small fraction.
Well, I've passed it on to the new custodian.
Okay, all right.
Some people learn a lot quicker than others, that's all, Colin.
Well, yes, okay, I concede.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, was Eddie's dinner tonight any better than last week we saw him eating?
Looks like David's got a question mark, Spinnakers. The boat's got a Jenica. Haven't used it yet. Looking forward to giving it a bit of a fly and a play at some stage with a few good crew members on board to sort me out. It's a long time since I've flown a Spinnaker. Well, on a boat that I'm steering anyway. But yeah, it's got a Jenica. And look forward to giving it a go sometime.
It's an amazing boat. It's like new. It really is. You got to look pretty hard to try and find any sort of mark even on it. So it's been well looked after, and no doubt Rod will be looking after her as well as you did Shamrock.
Yeah, that's the aim. Yeah. The condition of it really stood out. When the surveyor was doing his job and I was there in Sydney, he quietly said to me on their side afterwards, he said, this is not this boat, the 2006 boat, but he said, it looks more like a 4-year-old boat to me. The condition it's in, it's been very, very well looked after and maintained, and it probably never raced. I don't think the owner ever raced it. I think he just went cruising with friends and family and his wife.
Excellent.
Okay, we've got another question here. Have you renamed it?
I'm halfway through renaming it. Halfway through. You might have noticed the name Hijacker, which is a bit of a touchy name in this day and age. It didn't really appeal to me, but I've got to go through the proper renaming ceremony, and I've got the name plastered down both of the top sides back from the bow a bit, which I can't remove until I pull it out of the water. I've cleaned up everything off the transom, and I've got all the new decals and the name, everything ready, but I need to slip it and remove all evidence of the old name, go through the ceremony and toast to the Poseidon, King of the Sea, and all the wind gods, and do the proper ceremony so that we don't bring any bad luck on the boat under its new name, and then christen it with a new name. So hopefully at some stage, before the end of this year, I can get it up on the hoppo slips and do some manual maintenance, and rename it.
Okay, we've got a few other comments here. With the meeting last Friday about trimming sails, how are the sails on your boat? That was from Lynn.
Right. Yeah, Main and Hetzel originals. The Elfstrom, they're Swedish, the Elfstrom brand, and I had them off, and I had them into Doyle's for altering the numbers for the hobbo's registration. Had them go over them, and I think they're pretty reasonable. I think, Colin, you might have a more candid view on them, but I think they're pretty good at the moment. They've got plenty of life left in them, I think.
Yeah, they
age.
Yeah.
Pretty shape.
Maybe not regatta sails, but yeah, they're still good. Yeah. And Gail asked, we're talking about racing now. Gail's asking, are you going to be racing?
I'd like to tuck into the Pursuit series again at the yacht club and a bit of longer distance stuff. I just love that sort of race that we used to do down to St Leonard's and then continuing on to Queenscliff. So that sort of thing appeals, and a good chunk of cruising on the bay and cruising around close by too.
You'll be able to finish off the race with a hot shower and a roast.
Absolutely. Creature comforts now at this age.
Hey, and yeah, Gail says she's on Reflection, the other Bavaria.
Yeah.
Right, Jim Doherty's asked where your chosen bolt holes in case of the weather turning to custard. I don't think we had custard on the trip, did we?
No, it was that
More
great
cheese
time
and
of the year.
biscuits was our style.
Yeah. I was very much guided by Colin there because, well, I hadn't been further east since further than east than Lakes Entrance. So that New South Wales coast, well, I've heard plenty of people talk about it and cruising up and down it.
Yeah,
from where we stopped, they were the key sort of places, weren't we? You know.
They are. There's Ulladulla in there as well. But you really are spoiled for choice. Once you get to Eden, any further north from that, with the quality of weather forecasts we get these days, you really don't need to get caught out there in bad weather. They're quite short hops. It's always a bit of fun getting across the paddock from the prom to Eden. But these days, again, with the dredging at Lakes Entrance, it's nowhere near as bad as what it used to be. So I was always very hesitant to go anywhere near Lakes Entrance, but now it's, as you know, it's quite doable, even in marginal conditions. We've got some good questions here too that everyone can see. Dave, Mr. Judge, you're looking for some free Wi-Fi, are you?
Yeah.
I don't know if Brian can hit the Wi-Fi from his cave, though, says Ryan. Okay, we've got any other questions out there?
All quiet.
All quietly, the Eastern Front. Well, it certainly is good news that people from outside the 5 kilometre radius can come and do. I think the wording, Colin, was safety and urgent maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's something to see. There'll probably be a few more people coming down to the club to do those things.
It was safety and emergency.
That's the one.
Yes.
Emergency, yes.
Yes.
So Rod no longer has to do any emergency sanding or varnishing, so he can't use that excuse.
Can't use that one. Or a leaky boat. A leaky wooden boat.
There's no leak on the boat anymore, so you're pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Electrical paper charts was a question Mr. Judge has asked. Is Navionics all the way? We also had the Plotters card, but Navionics certainly is just fantastic. It really is. The updates that go through are coming through every day.
Yeah.
So we relied on that, didn't we, Rod? That worked well.
Tablet worked well. I had a set of paper charts as well as a backup. They're still sitting on board, so we had that covered. But Colin's tablet did a great job. Oh, look, the chart plotter is Ray Marine C7, so it's quite antiquated technology by today's standards, and quite laborious to enter waypoints and everything, as some of you may well know. The tablet was just a breeze, wasn't it, Colin?
Yeah.
Way you could set up courses and waypoints, and you know, when with the two of us on board particularly, I could just follow that during the night. We're sailing along. Older course, older autopilot was just brilliant.
Mm. Yeah, it's a Samsung Active tablet, so it's waterproof and rugged. I take a couple, one that I keep for myself, and the other crew can use, and it synchronizes the courses and everything between the two tablets, so we're on the same page. A while ago with the Navionics on your phone, and tablets sort of stuff. I'd just paid my $46, I think it was, for the year's subscription, and a customer had just spent, I think it was $400 or $500 on a platinum card for his plotter, and we were going to Lake Macquarie. His $400 card only showed the lake as a big blue patch, whereas the $46 Navionics on the phone showed all the channels and channel marks. So it was a real eye-opener. It is a good source, but of course you don't want to rely just on the one.
No. No, good to have the backup.
Good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, we're all happy.
We're all happy.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Rod. That was good to relive it for me, and I hope everyone else enjoyed that. We'd normally be passing a bottle of wine to you right now, but we might have to put that on hold and wait until we can all sit around the bar at Hobbo's. Hopefully
Yes.
not too far away.
Let's hope.
I think this was is this episode number 6 for our locked up catch downs?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's wonderful work. Number 7 for next week. We're looking at having Adrian Finglass put on a talk for us. He's the head coach at HBYC, and he'll be talking about coaching successful sailing teams. So that should be a good one too. I hope everyone's enjoyed the chat.
Yep, excellent.
Wonderful. It's good to see some faces there.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see.
Look forward to seeing everyone out of lockdown.
And I'll be down there to do a safety check on Chloe.
Yes, very good.
I've been getting concerned. I haven't been sleeping the last few nights for safety reasons.
That's all right. You've got to do it outside curfew hours. So when you can't sleep, Pat, you can just slip down to the boat.
Well, as of Monday, you'll have an extra hour to do it. And
oh, right. Yeah.
I'm actually struggling with, as of Monday, I mean, I know he said he wanted to do 1 hour's exercise a day. I've been struggling with that. I don't know how I'm going to do 2 hours, but we'll give it a good go.
Just something for everyone. We quite often say, what is Australian sailing doing for us? Now, in the last lockdown, they brought out a rule to say that you had to still socially distance, even if you were from the same family once you got on a boat. Absolutely crazy. So Gavin Wall from Australian Sailing said, look, that's the rule as it stands. I'll get back to you in a couple of days, which he did, and said, I've spoken to the water police, told them that they're bloody idiots, and they agreed. And so you were allowed to be, on the boat, not socially distancing with members of your own family. Once again, they've managed with the marine safety people to negotiate something that's good for kiteboarders and windsurfers, and now for this. So although they perhaps don't do as much as we might think we would like to get them to do, this is an example of some success. So in this case, well done, Yachting Australia. Australian Sailing, sorry.
And sailing, yeah.
All right, thank you, Colin.
Excellent. Yep.
My sailing friend in South Australia.
Hey, Rod, I noticed you had a whole bunch of bananas on your boat there before you left. Did you go all right with those, or did you sink in the middle of the night?
I made them eat them all on the first night.
That's right. We were stuffed full of bananas for dinner. Dessert on the first night, Jonathan. On fear from Colin, no one was going to bring bad luck onto this.
We're all superstitious and we're all God-fearing. That's it, isn't it?
Don't we?
Well, those bananas caused the pandemic.
Wow.
Okay. On that note.
Thanks, Rod.
On that note, we'll say good night to all, and
thank you, Rod, and thank you, Rod Austin, too, for helping pull all this together.
No,
Yep.
thanks, Rod.
Excellent.
Rod and Rod. Excellent. Good. A few of us there tonight.
And Colin
20.
Yeah, I think we had up to 29 people.
got
Yeah,
to 29,
excellent.
which is the second best. So that's pretty good. That's really good. Yeah.
I reckon there was one cat or two that I saw.
Yeah, that was Ryan and Leo.
Ah, right.
At the cat.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
Or she. Is it a he or a she?
One cat.
She.
She. Ah, good work.
I saw
The royal she.
Rob Tanner tried to log into last week's, so thanks, Rob. Okay. All right. See you all.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Bye. all. See you.
Ciao.
Go.
Bye.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rod. Colin, I'm going to hang up and I'm going to start doing the video. I'll send it to you very shortly. Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Colin. Okay. See ya.
Bye all.